Hello, everyone. This is Kestrel. I am at my new apartment um, in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio, where I have moved 2 months ago from my previous location to work as a machinist. For the time being, I do plan on returning to ecology at some point, but I need to talk briefly because I don't have much time today. I will see what I can do tomorrow about the state of the nation. So, early this year, I think about the near the end of January, President Trump gave probably his best State of the Union speech ever, where he told the story of the founding of America. Now, there is a, um, do I call it campaign? All right, now there's this agenda to push forth this book and this project called the 1619 Project that claims America was founded on slavery. This is not the case. There were the origin of uh, African slaves being brought from the coast of Africa to the New World, what's called the New World, North America, North and South America, but we're talking about North America right now. Um, Central and South America was actually very different. Well, a distinct story. North America was a British uh, colony, of course, in the beginning in the 1600s. It actually took quite a while to get going. There was a lot of failed attempts, a lot of death, and it eventually got going with the Jamestown colony. They eventually figured it out, building forts near the coast, and a lot of the Native Americans had been wiped out a by a disease. This was true, but theory was not known at the time. So it was not clear what was going on. The whole understanding of germ theory and how diseases work is actually extremely new. It's really just this past century, uh, maybe a century and a half. I forget exactly when, but what's kind of surprising is that doctors didn't even keep taking records of what kind of treatments for illnesses worked and what didn't until really the last couple of centuries. Now, there is a possibility that some doctors in some time period location were doing so before and the records got lost. Certainly possible. We know a lot of records have been lost to history in different times and places. So it was not understood how this works. In fact, the theory before germ theory was this miasma theory that the atmosphere around the bodies and the dying contained this miasma. If you watch Inuyasha, it's this kind of poison gas that some demons will spill. I mean, that's not what the idea was. It was just the kind of atmospheric diseases. And we do know that pathogens will linger around some corpses. Some much longer than others. They all work slightly differently. But one of the first Native Americans to very much help the Europeans get established on the New World and grow crops was one named Tisquantum, uh, Squanto for short. I grew up, I remember in the first and second grade learning quite a lot about the story of Squanto. When I started elementary school in the very early 90s, there was still a great pride in singing about how special America was. It has been quite a shock to me, even though I'm sort of the mid range of the first wave of the millennial generation. I don't know if I look a lot younger than that. There's reasons for that. I was in a sort of developmental stasis for a very long time in about the mid 2000s, from about 2008 to 2016 or 17. It's a very long story, would take probably a whole hour to tell. I'll explain it at some point. I think I talked about it a little in the last one. I was born with a genetic illness that didn't completely take me down, but certainly made developing, growing normally, a real challenge. Um, I was in a coma for a month, I think, when I was 12 years old, almost 13. Again, it's complicated, but this is just a couple of points. Uh, did not grow much during high school. Still managed to get through high school, although barely. I started doing well at the in the last second years. Went to college to study ecology, environmental science, but I meant as ecology. Uh, for From 2005 to 2011, I was mostly done by 2010, but there was one course left to take in the spring of 2011. After that, some uh, residual medical stuff really caught up with me, and I had to spend several years dealing with that. And then when I returned to trying to be productive, which was a long process, it I had to go through. Well, this was the only way I could manage to do it. I went through several volunteer opportunities, from lower to higher intensity, eventually getting that position as a volunteer fossil databaser with the Cleveland Museum of Natural History until about midway through 2019. Now, then I had taken a machinist course because I knew I needed to get a job, wasn't seeing ecology happening as a paid job very soon. And so I took a 16-week course in CNC machining. That's computer numerical control machining. And at the end of that, said, it may take several months, but you will likely be able to get a job. One of the companies highly recommended to me that I applied to was SwageLock. So I did. For many months, I applied to many different jobs and eventually was offered a job this year. And this is why I've now moved to work. And I do plan on returning to ecology at some point, but I have almost completely, just personally, ignored the coronavirus shutdown. I mostly choose to not wear a mask. Work is mandating that I do at work, although it's very difficult to get through the night. I work the second shift, which is the about mid-afternoon to quite late at night. So, part of the problem is, for me, I am not declining to wear a mask when I go out because I believe it's some macho statement or anything. I just really can't live my life like that. I need to work. I need to be productive. I fought for a very long time to be productive again. I was getting very restless. And so that is my reasoning. And also, I think, it's not a macho thing. It's that, well, first of all, the media has completely blown their credibility on giving information, as they have for many, many years. And that will relate to the topic I want to talk about briefly next, that I want to comment on, although I don't know the full details of the story. It's the George Floyd story and what America has become. But I think we need to start aggressively developing a resistance, and we can't wear masks indefinitely. Now, the claim from some people is that we won't be, but I have not yet heard any idea, not even an idea, a proposal of a end date. And that is really making me suspicious. A lot of things are making me suspicious. Last fall, I attended a 3 day seminar at Hillsdale College in Michigan on combating the push for socialism in America. I actually had a great time there. Um, Hillsdale College was very welcoming. I think if you're even mildly into the conservative perspective, you might want to, and you're looking to go to college, you might seriously consider Hillsdale College, although it's probably best to try to work for a few years and um, build resources and start a family, and then maybe go to college if you want a degree. You can work before college, and you'll have some money, hopefully some money saved up, so you won't be completely crushed by debt right away. Which is the advice that should have been given in high school, by the way. Work for a few years. I wish my high school had given that. But okay, there is a quote from Dr. Alan Grant in the Jurassic Park movie when they're having that dinner, talking about the stability of the park, um, the very the very idea of that controlling this park of dinosaurs. He says, now in the time we've been here, I actually this can apply to millennials especially because we were the generation that saw the radical increase of leftist insanity. I was talking to my dad yesterday, and I think I think the left really experimented with how far they could go with us, and we unfortunately now very much unwittingly didn't really know where it was going to be taken so quickly. Were used as experiments to see how far they could go, and I there's a lot of regret now. But the quote is, the world has just changed so radically, and we're all struggling to catch up. I think that's very relevant to today. There was, when I was a little kid, my generation had already gotten to the point where we were inherently accepting of other people. We didn't need to have it forced down our throats. Now the left kind of used us and are embracing to force it down people's throats, and used us as the we should accept everything. Unfortunately, that has not played out well. Now, I don't know what the perfect combination of balances and solutions is. It's a constant struggle, and this is why free conversation needs to continue so that we can continue to talk about the problems and try to come up with ideas, come up with solutions. This is what the idea of North America was. This is the place where that would happen. And for many, many decades it did. Also did in Europe, but European countries did not, unfortunately, and I feel terrible for what they're going through as well. They did not enshrine the freedom of speech where they should have, and it's fragile even in America. We're going to have to fight very hard this next century to keep it. But here's the question: what do we go about believing in the world? Now, I am a person who questions authority all the time. Sometimes they have good answers, sometimes they don't. But I like to question things all the time. I am very scientifically minded. I wanted to be an ecologist, a realistic ecologist, by the way, not some radical environmentalist. Although I did start to go down that path. I at the beginning of college, I have gotten more rational since then. Um, but this George Floyd case, apparently, what happened this past Wednesday or Thursday, I believe, is that uh, so this African American man, George Floyd, was he conning or scamming a deli or some something? What was the report? I'm looking at something simple because I don't know the full details. I'm just going to do a quick comment about this. Okay, so apparently at the deli, he was trying to make forge some money at a deli or something. Okay, use a $20 counterfeit bill. Apparently, that was what began, and the officers were called to respond, and they tried to take him away. He resisted arrest, and they, through a process of arrest, had him on the ground. One of the officers had him had him in some kind of chokehold. I don't know how the cops are trained to do that. I don't know how those work. Uh, but he was complaining that he can't breathe. Now, it's now there are a couple of possibilities here. There is the possibility that he was trying to get away, that this was not the case. Now, he did die in police custody. Maybe they I don't know. I would have to look extensively at the details. Um, I am a detective sort of thinker. The whole founding value of the West is that you cannot accuse and you cannot imprison a person, civilians, cops, military, without going through due process and presenting evidence that leads to either a conviction or a acquittal beyond a reasonable doubt. It's actually a little bit easier to do the acquittal because you do have to raise some measure of reasonable doubt, which is exactly how it should work. But there was going to be an investigation into what happened. George Floyd's death was not being ignored. And on Thursday night, rioters destroyed, burned down 3rd Precinct building in Minneapolis. The disproportionate attack here it's a real disaster. Now, a lot of Minneapolis has been destroyed because of this. If not directly destroyed, then it's going to be destroyed in one way or another. Certainly, a lot fewer businesses are going to want to be in Minneapolis. The situation is growing out of control. Trump is sending in Trump sent in the National Guard to try to deal with this. I haven't looked at all the details yet, but the mainstream media that have for years and years been shoving down American throats the narrative that white people are only racist, that America is only racist, who have put the 1619 Project on a pedestal. This blood is on your hands. This blood is on the hands of everyone who has falsely accused any people, any group, whites, Christians, Jews, blacks, Muslims, yada, yada, yada. You push the narrative that one group of people is only racist and one group of people is only victims. This blood is on your hands. This is why it has escalated to this point. This needs to stop now. Should have stopped decades ago. But you have put insane people on a pedestal who only spout the narrative that a country that was founded on the value of freedom, the United States of America, did not exist in 1619. It did not exist until 1776. And the ethics of slavery, of segregation, were a hot debate from the very start. In the West, slavery was on its last legs in those few centuries. It did take until 1865 to be ended, and the American Civil War was much more about. I think the main reason, I could be wrong on this, but I think the real reason why it escalated into a full-scale war, civil war, was largely to do with economics, with territory, with is the country gonna break in two or is it gonna stay whole? There was slavery was on its last legs. It wasn't really valued very highly. There were people who did, certainly, but it was a debate from the start. It was not liked from the start. There were Democrats formed the KKK, by the way. There were racists on both sides. There were black slavers who were extremely cruel. There was a whole wide range from the very start. But you only push the narrative. Media, left, Democrats, universities, God damn you, this is your fault. You only push the narrative that the West was founded on racism, on colonialism. You know, if you study the history in any real context of human history, migration, tribes throughout times, they were all practicing slavery until it was a Christian mission in the West to bring it to an end. And that was really within the last few centuries before that all got shed upon by people who only wanted to take power from themselves by spouting a narrative that that white people in the West are only racist. This is on your hands. This blood, this destruction is on your hands. I don't know what the future is going to hold anymore. I really don't know. I I started to enter the young adult stage in the early 2000s, and things seemed so promising then. Why does everything created, built, that is good, that is enjoyable, last for such a short time? Why? Maybe that's something we really need to think about. What are we doing?